Hi everyone, Zizaran here with another build guide for the upcoming Legion League. This is a Trickster Essence Drain Contagion. So from what we know, this should be extremely strong against the new league mechanic because GGG have confirmed that Contagion will bounce around the new the soldiers in the monolith thing. So should be very strong, very easy to follow guide for new players, and this should be able to handle everything, clearing the new league mechanic and bosses. So stay tuned and I hope you guys like it. First, I'm going to start by explaining how we use Path of Building in the guides, and we use it quite a lot more than most guides you might be used to. If you've already seen this part, you can move to the description down below and click a timestamp button to skip directly to the guide. So first you need Path of Building. Path of Building is a third-party program that you can download, and it's in the description down below. It's completely safe and most people use it. It's a very powerful tool that lets you plan out your builds and import items, stuff like that. Now, once you have Path of Building, you can go and import the Path of Building link here by pasting it here. Once you have that, it should look, well, it depends what build you're importing, because I'll use this for everything. But it should look like the build of the video you're watching. And what we do, and I'm using a Gladiator Thunder Cyclone build here as an example, I show a step-by-step of what the skill tree looks like at certain levels. So at early levels, it's very, very easy, especially if you're a new player, to follow. And I also say when to ascend, and the ascension points are generally here, and I'll talk about that in the specific video as well and why things are chosen. But as you can see, the skill tree is evolving over time, and sometimes there will be variations for, you know, if it's like different weapons, if it's one-hander, two-hander, and a lot of things like that. But wait, there's more. Under the skills, we usually do all like the different skills plus the leveling one. I'm trying out a new sort of like alphabetized group. So this is like your main attack skill. So as you can see here, you have ground slam to 8 to 12, but at 12 it gets replaced by Sunder, and I kept that in the same like A, just so you're understanding what I'm replacing it with if there's no leveling video accompanying it. So hopefully that'll make it very clear. Same here with, obviously at early level you're using Ancestral Protector, and then you replace that same B with War Chief later on. So we'll also put notes, like for example here, Pulverize doesn't exist yet in Path of Building, and there's a few things that they're just not in Path of Building at the time that I'm making this guide. This is going to happen a lot on videos that are made around launch, just Path of Building's not updated yet. So that's just not much we can do about. And for the most part, I'll always put gems in a priority level. Like my first priority is always going to be Onslaught, just because it ups your clear speed so much while killing. And you can see like different utilities and stuff. And another example here is plus blood and sand, because that again doesn't exist in Path of Building. We also have different types of items. So here we have early game axis, mid game axis, and end game axis. I think the jewels are displayed here. Yes. So the way I do this is I make some like fairly okay items that are like, you know, depending on how fast you play, somewhere that you'll have them between day 1 to 3. And if you don't know how to get a tabula, for example, you can farm that in Act 9 fairly easily in Blood Aqueduct. And we go through here, and it's I never in my guides will put resists on the life gear, because just you need to be resist capped. That's very important. 75% all resist. Remember that you lose resist in Act 5 and 10. And then on the jewels, I'll try to do 4-slot jewels and try to say as many good stats as possible for that build. So there's no like, you don't see the same one twice here, but all of these work for the build. Hopefully that'll help. And then this is generally how I recommend rolling flasks. There's even more in the notes as well. Mr. Madiki will generally go through and tell you exactly where to buy the skill gems that you're needed. This is actually a tip by another streamer called Lyric, who said he was sad there was nothing like this in Path of Exile guides. I was like, that is actually a great idea for new players. So we have that. So if you're wondering where to buy things, or if it can't be bought by your specific class, we call it a mule. Then you have to use another character to use it or to buy it. And all the details for that is in here. So hopefully it now makes more sense how to use the guides and how they work. Let's continue with the build guide. So we'll start with obviously the skill tree as like normal. It shows you exactly what points to take at what level. And early on you want to get some AoE because that'll be really nice for your contagion. And then the final skill tree looks around like this. This is a nice place to put your spreading ritual, which we'll talk about later. And should be very strong. As normal as well with the skill gems in socket groups and stuff. So you can see A is, for example, the same one that you replace. So once you get Essence Drain, you replace your Frost Bomb. So you don't need to have like other gems clunking up your limited space as it already is. We have a new system for socket groups. So you know exactly what gem to replace with what. Frost Bomb gets replaced by Essence Drain because they're both A. I wouldn't use that on everything, just something that will most likely need to be replaced and easier to follow for new players. So you can see all the endgame sockets and stuff here, and then later here we have the endgame link setups. So you have utilities as well, like Flame Dash with Arcane Surge. Once you get one of the ascendancies later on, you won't be able to use Arcane Surge with Flame Dash because it doesn't cost any mana. And we can take a quick look at the ascendancies. They're part of the skill tree as well. So here, around 47 points, you take the first one. This is Swift Killer, which is really great. You get Frenzy Charges and Power Charges, which will now give you damage instead of just crit. Second ascendancy is Ghost Dance. This is really good because it starts to give you Energy Shield back based on how much evasion you have whenever you get hit. Your Merciless ascendancy is Escape Artist. This gives you a large chunk of energy shield as long as you have evasion. So a really good endgame chest piece, which we'll talk about later, can be, for example, a Sadist Garb with high energy shield and high evasion. And the final point is actually Weave the Arcane. You can do Patient Reaper as well, but Weave the Arcane helps a lot with, obviously, mana sustain and gives you a lot of clear speed because of the attacking cast speed whenever you use, for example, Flame Dash. So, and on top of that, it also gives you 6% reduced damage taken after spending 200 mana, which should be happening a lot. Patient Reaper as well is not a horrible choice. It's a lot of damage. You get life, energy shield, and mana recovery whenever you kill something. There's already a life recovery mechanic with Essence Drain anyway, however. And the 70% recovery rate, it like multiplies whenever you're regenning or using flask, and pretty much any recovery is multiplied by that. So it's very strong for that. But I will be going for Weave the Arcane. And this is a good point to mention. This is most likely what I will play with as my league starter. Just because I'm a little bit worried about starting with melee. It relies very heavily on weapons, even though they've like done some nice changes for that. Spells, we already know exactly how strong they're gonna be. And Contagion ED was pretty much as strong as Winter Orb last league, except Winter Orb has been nerfed fairly hard, whereas Contagion ED was not nerfed at all. So it's still definitely gonna... I'd put a lot of money on this being the strongest build in this entire league. Now, if we look at items, we have some early game examples of good uniques. Obviously, if you're playing solo self-find, you can just slap it on with loads of rares. And we just have generic life gear as examples. The reason I don't put specific resists on these items is I don't want anyone trying to find exactly a 2-stone wing with 16 fire res. The important thing is just make sure that you get res capped and remember that you lose resistances at Act 5 and at Act 10. At Series Step, fairly easy to either self-farm with this build because at Series should be very easy. There's no reflect you have to worry about or anything like that. It's very nice for the spell dodge, high movement speed, high life, really great boots. Tabula Rasa, very easy to self-farm in Blood Aqueduct Act 9. Seals Amplifier, pretty great shield. Very hard to get in Soul self-farm because it's not something you can easily target farm, but obviously you have the spell damage, life, energy shield, and evasion. and you get AoE for each enemy killed recently, so your contagion will spread better. Blast and everything is set out here, so you can check those out. Jewels, generally just chaos damage, damage over time, increased damage. These are all good things to get. And you can also get spell damage and spell damage with shields on jewels as well. And I would try to get maximum life on every jewel. Even if it's 1 damage stat, then it really adds up getting 6% damage per jewel. Spreading rot you put here. Remember that the int doesn't need to be allocated inside the radius. It just needs to exist. Just needs to exist inside the radius. And now for endgame items, you have a couple of good options. The easiest, and this is fairly doable in SSF now as well, is multi-modding a non-ailment chaos damage over time. Now, a good thing is that we can now shield charge with wands, which we couldn't before. So before you would need to get a dagger or a scepter. Now you can actually get a wand with spell damage, or if you want to be even faster, you can get a cast speed implicit wand. And the multi-mod is 2 exalted orbs, so it can take a little bit of time to get that. But it'll definitely be very, very strong because it multiplies the rest of your damage. All the other gear is fairly like standard hybrid energy shield gear, so you want energy shield and life for this build. The perfect form is a really good pickup. If you're SSF and you can't find one or get one, then you can also use a rare sadist garb and try to 6-sync that and craft high energy shield and evasion on it. A Impressence Amulet, which drops off the Red Elder, is really nice. It gives you free Despair mana restoration. I'll be self-casting this a lot most likely, especially on bosses or rares. Obviously they've been increased in life, so we might have to use a little bit more damage on those. But Impressence is a very solid pickup. And you can get chaos damage on a lot of your gear, either through essences, the Envy essence, and you can also use an aberrant fossil to craft these. Searching Eye with Onslaught is a great way of getting Onslaught for your build. The Onslaught gem does not work, however the Searching Eye is on kill and that does work, so that's definitely great and useful for the build. For Flask, you do have the option of, for example, getting rid of your Quartz Flask and using a Witchfire Brew if you want to play a little bit fast and loose. I would probably not use one and opt for having the Quartz Flask. It's an additional chance to dodge, which will help keep me alive. I need it. It's up to you if you want to do the same. Now, the bandits for this build is you kill them all, so you get 2 skill points from that. It's not a terrible choice to take a Lyra early on for the early resist, especially if you're rushing, but that will end up costing you 20 regrets to change this later on. You also have the Pantheons, which I would do Solaris, and upgrading that is really good. And for the smaller ones, the only one that would be like super good would be Shikari. You upgrade that to be immune to poison. Early on, you can use Relikesh because it like helps you really... Early on, you can use Relikesh. It helps you a lot against lab traps and stuff like that. It'll make all the damage over time fist ones do less damage, which makes ascending a lot easier if you're already struggling with traps. And all the way until you upgrade the Shikari Pantheon, this is a solid pickup. For the small Pantheon node, the Garakan one is very good, especially when you upgrade it with the dig map. It gives you movement speed when you haven't been hit recently, which will definitely come in handy. For those of you who have never played a Contagion ED build, we'll show a little bit of gameplay in the background. So the way it works is you will normally combo your skills. By that I mean that I'll first use Contagion and then Essence Drain into that. The Essence Drain will then spread out and deal loads of damage. You also have a lot of synergy with your Blight, where you can, on bosses especially, use Blight after you've thrown down ED, and that will make... that will give the boss something called Wither stacks. There are other ways to get that too. You can use the skill Wither, but because we're using the Spreading Rot Cobalt Jewel unique, that is letting our Blight actually apply this while also dealing damage. So bosses should be great for this. If you're feeling a little bit on the spot, you can use a Decoy Totem for this build as well. So you can decoy and then focus on your single target while the boss is busy hitting the Decoy Totem. And obviously another really nice thing is that this is a powerful skill for leveling, so you don't have to level with something else and swap into it later. As soon as you get Essence Drain, you can, feels great to level with. It's been a long time since I've actually played with this, and the last time was an occultist, and I'm very much looking forward to trying it on a trickster now. Obviously trickster did get quite nerfed. I'd say it's probably still the strongest ascendancy even after all the melee buffs. So we'll see how it turns out this league. Hope you guys all have a wonderful time in Legion. Let me know how you do. Drop by my channel at twitch.tv/Zizaran. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. I'll be online all the time at launch. So I'll see you guys there. Thanks for watching, and try to die less than I do.